Look at that. Dolby, okay, it's stuck. Dolby Atmos, linear PCM, and then of course Atmos. YouTube community, welcome into the channel, welcome into the video, and boy do I have some news for you. I'm going to be showing you how I have apparently slayed the dragon that is known as getting Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision to not only display in the top right hand corner when a Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos title is played, but also on your Sony receiver. Let's dive right in. So first we're going to do is we're actually going to go in here and check the TV settings, and I have a little caveat to show you about this as well, which is interesting to me. So we're going to dive in here, we'll go over to sound, HDMI ARC device of course, advanced settings. Let's scroll on down and we're going to start here with select HDMI input audio format. Now you'll note here I have PCM on 1, bitstream, 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 and the reason why is on PlayStation 5, that's where I have the PlayStation 5 hooked up to HDMI 1, so that's PCM, that doesn't really matter. The other three here, I have all on bitstream just in case that had something to do with it. So HDMI 2 is where I have the receiver hooked up, so you want to make sure this says bitstream. 3 and 4, it's whatever. You know, I have the Apple TV 4K here on bitstream as well. And then HDMI 4, you know my battles. If you've been following my channel, you know I've had some serious battles with this HDMI 4 on my LG C2 here when it comes to the Xbox Series X, but that's a topic for more videos, right? So let's back out of here. Let's go down here. Digital sound output. Now you'll note, as of right now, I have this set on auto, but I'm going to tell you a little secret towards the end of the video that has to do with this auto and pass-through and how these two impact getting those flags to register properly. So for the sake of this, we're going to go ahead and continue with auto, and naturally you'll want to have eARC support checked on. Next, let me find the Apple TV remote here. We're going to go down in to the Apple TV 4K settings here, video and audio of course, and down here you'll note as of right now it's showing auto, Atmos available, which is what you want to see. So let's go back to the home screen. Let's do our first test. Let's go into Netflix. You already know the usual suspect here, The Night Agent. I picked this one because Vision and Atmos title, it's readily available to me. So I'm going to go in here, play a very quick amount of this, or a very short amount of this episode so that I don't get copyright flagged. But what I want you to do is take note of what it shows in the top right hand corner. Okay, and there it is. I'm actually going to go ahead and back out momentarily, because next what I want to do is I'm going to play it again, but this time I'm going to move the camera towards my receiver. That way you could see what's going on there. Okay, I apologize in advance for the wobbly camera, but I wanted to get you a better angle. So I'm back here on the Night Agent, of course. Going to press play on that content. I want you to take note of what shows up on the receiver screen momentarily. So I'm going to go ahead and press play on the content, and then once the audio kicks in, look at that. Dolby, okay, it's stuck. Dolby Atmos, linear PCM, and then of course Atmos. So as you can see, I'm now seeing Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos flag in the top right hand corner when I play that content on the TV, and I'm also now receiving it on the receiver, and I'm going to share the secret to how I got this to finally work. So this will, unfortunately for those of you out there that are struggling with this, if you don't have my exact setup, this may not necessarily be the fix for you. This only applies to those with a Sony receiver, such as the STR DH790, which is the model that I have. So how I fixed this was I went into, and I'll go ahead and show the clip. I went into the settings on the receiver, and I went into system, and I wanted to see what firmware was on the receiver. And I'm gonna be straightforward with you. I didn't know updating firmware was a thing on AV receivers. You know, as much as I keep up to date with that sort of thing, firmware updates on the Apple TV 4K, on the LG C2, the PlayStation 5, whatever. I keep up with the updates. I did not know a receiver getting firmware updates was a thing. And so I went online, I looked it up to see, you know, if just for the hell of it, is the firmware version that I was seeing on my receiver screen the most current firmware, and sure enough, it wasn't. There was a new firmware update available. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's been out for a while, like a long while. Like I think it showed the firmware version that I had on my receiver in here was from like 2018. So I've needed to update the firmware this entire time I've had it pretty much, but I was unaware. So I went through the convoluted steps that Sony has in place to install a firmware update on your receiver. I went through that process. At the very end, like I showed in the clip, you see what firmware version I'm on. That's the current firmware for the Sony STR-DH790. After I installed that, I ran my simulations like I showed in this video, and sure enough, I'm now seeing Dolby Atmos flag also on the receiver, similar to my setup in the living room, which those of you that follow my channel know. I have almost this identical setup for our living room setup, except the only difference there is the TV. That's a Sony A80J, this is an LG C2. Other than that, it's pretty much identical between the receiver, and we watch our content from an Apple TV 4K. So, okay, I'm inserting this clip after the fact because I realized I never shared what was going on with that secret that I hinted at the front of the video, involving this digital sound output and how auto and pass-through impacts the Dolby Atmos flags up here and on your receiver. Here's the secret. I tested both of these out, and it made no difference at all what showed up on my receiver screen, whether I had auto or pass-through. I thought for sure when I changed this to pass-through, something would change on the receiver panel, but I tested this multiple times on my setup, and if I had auto or pass-through, the flags in the top right-hand corner did not change. There was no difference, and there was no difference on the receiver screen, and for that matter, there was no difference in the Apple TV 4K settings. So that's what I was hinting at the start of the video. For my particular setup, I can have this on auto or pass-through, and it'll perform the exact same. That's all. It looks like I finally slayed the dragon. I have finally come to an end and getting that resolved. It looks like the whole time it may have been the firmware version that was on this receiver. I'm not completely convinced that it wasn't also something in the LG C2 settings that was holding that up. But having said that, I'm happy to be able to see all the flags now. I hope this video and the journey of videos that I've done in the past have helped you along the way. As always, leave me a comment below. Are you still struggling to get the flags to show up properly on your setup? Let me know what your components are, and I'll help you try and get that sorted out. So, as always, appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed everything, hit the like button. Really helps out the channel. If you're unsubscribed and you're watching, hey, appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell if you're going to subscribe. And until the next one.